In this video, we are going to take a look at the WNBA Draft in 2025. Way too early. But then again, it's never too early. So what I'm going to do is rank the top point guards and shooting guards in this video. If you enjoy it, let me know, and then I will come back with the forwards and centers and then an overall top 12 big board, but trying to put it all together in one video would just be too long. So give me your feedback. Now, before we start, I am not professing to be a scouting guru. In putting together my list, like I've seen some of the players, but I take more of a money ball or analytical approach at who should be drafted. I think it's important to look at who is currently in the WNBA right now and who got drafted last year, especially in terms of their height. Currently, there are 141 players in the WNBA, at least by my count, players under 6 feet tall. Now, I know certain players will lie and embellish their height. Elisa Peely, I'm looking at you. But of the sizes listed on their roster, 33% of the players are under 6 foot tall. It helps to be tall to make the WNBA. Yes, I know, newsflash, Captain Obvious comment right there. But you need to take that into account when you look at players, because a Georgia Amore, who is spectacular or really good in college, and I see people having her as a first round draft pick, there are only 4, 5, 6 players in the WNBA. There are only 2 5'5" players in the WNBA. There are only 3 5'7" players in the WNBA. Being 5'8" and above definitely helps improve your odds. As 5'11" players, there are 12, 5'10" players, there are 9, 5'9" players, there are 10, and 5'8" players, there are 9. In terms of the players drafted in 2024, I only know of one player that made the roster that's under 6 foot. That is J.C. Sheldon, who is 5'10". The other rookies that made the roster that are under 6 foot, Uzan, Van Loo, and Apupa, they are experienced overseas players. So they've honed their game. So that is the thing in looking at this draft, and that will be reflected in when I take a look at the point guard. So obviously, number 1, Paige Beckers. She has good height for a point guard at 6 foot. Then she can score at all 3 levels. Look at her shot chart. She can shoot from 3, 42%. Mid-range, 47%. In the paint, 57%. At the rim, 74%. If she gets through 24-25 injury-free, then she is a no-brainer to be the number 1 pick in the WNBA draft, in my opinion. The number 2 point guard that I have is Te-Hina Paopao. She is 5'9", so she's a little bit small, but she makes up for that by her shooting. Take a look at her shot chart. But she's not as effective in the mid-range game, at the paint, and at the rim. And that is the downside with her. I suspect if I was going to have one trait that WNBA teams like, it is shooting from the 3-point line, as 3 is more than 2. Hence why I have her rated ahead of her teammate 5'9" Raven Johnson. And to be clear, Raven is not a bad 3-point shooter. Her 3-point shooting improved to 39%, but she only took 38 3-pointers from top of the key. She can finish at the basket 61% better than Te-Hina Paopao, and she can have a mid-range game in the key. But that's the question. I think WNBA teams would value Te-Hina Paopao more than Raven Johnson, even though Raven Johnson's defense is better. And to that end, that is why I have Olivia Miles rated number 4, even though she's 5'10" and has better size than Te-Hina Paopao and Raven Johnson, and she averaged more points at 13 points per game versus Paopao at 11 and Raven Johnson at 8. But the concern with her is her shot. So her 3-point shot, she only shot 24% from 3-point range. Now, the good thing with her is she gets to the basket and she finishes at the rim at 72%. But the question is, will that game work in the WNBA? Has the injury, being out with the ACL injury, has that allowed her to reconfigure, improve her shot? To be determined. Hopefully it goes well and she has an injury-free 2024-25 season. As my number 5 prospect, I have Charlize Ledger-Walker, who will be playing for UCLA this year. She's recovering from an ACL injury. Before she got hurt last year, her shooting was a bit down from the 3-point line at 23%. The year prior, she actually shot 36% from the 3-point line above the break, and she has good size. She's 5'10", so if she has the speed to keep up on defense, recovers well from her ACL, and has a good year shooting, then she could really push up the chart on point guards next year prior to the WNBA draft. Now, the three that did not make my top five: Roy Harmon, Georgia Amore, Sarah Andrews at Baylor. I like all of these players, but their lack of height, I think, really hurts their draft potential, if you like, for the WNBA. And if you look at Ari McDonald, when she came to Australia for the WNBL in Australia, she tore up the WNBL in Australia. But in the WNBA, it is just so much harder for her to get points because the athletes are so much bigger and physical. It's just really, really hard for players that are smaller. Now let's take a look at the off guard or shooting guards. So my number one, which I imagine will be controversial, is Gianna Neepkins from Utah. Here's my reasoning. She is 6 foot. She can shoot. She was injured last year with her foot injury, but the year before that, 2022-23, she averaged 15 points, shot 49% from the floor, 42% from the three-point line. Her effective field goal shooting percentage was 60%. If you are an elite shooter like this and 6 foot, you will make a roster. She's a better shooter than Kate Martin. Her shot chart is almost identical to Marina Mabrey as well, if you want another comp. Number two, I mentioned it in my last video, I have AZ Fudd, and obviously this is injury dependent. She needs to show that she can play all of next year and not have any issues and have a really good tournament and ride high straight into the WNBA draft. And if she does that, if she has a really good tournament and good second part of the 24-25 season, then I think she will be drafted quite high, and it is because of her shot. In her one injury healthy year, or relatively, she was out with a foot for the first part of her freshman year, but that year she shot 43% from the three-point line, as well as 56% inside the paint and 75% at the rim. Small sample though, because she was limited due to her injuries, and that's the big question with her. But if she does have a healthy year, I think the temptation will be too great to pass up, but I will actually put her number 5 on my list right now. But I mentioned her second, as I feel if she is healthy next year, she has the potential to shoot up this list like a rocket. The next three players I think are very similar. So number 2, I have Sonia Citron of Notre Dame. She's 6'1", averaged 17 points, 5.5 rebounds, 2.7 assists, shot 46% from the floor, 35% from three-point range, and 52% effective field goal shooting percentage. The thing that she really has going for her is she finishes well at the rim at 75%. She was good on three-point attempts from the corner, 47%, which you think she would probably be doing in the WNBA, and overall you can see her just slotting in, being a big off guard that can do everything. And that is the same for my number 3, who is Cheyenne Sellers from Maryland. She is 6'2". She averaged 15 points, 5.8 rebounds, 5.5 assists. She shot 43% from the floor, 31% from three, and 46% effective field goal percentage. She does most of her damage in the mid-range game, shooting 44% from mid-range, but she's not real great at the basket, only 54% at the rim and 38% in the paint, which she thinks she'd be better just because of her length, but it's not really the case. But I think she'll get drafted on length alone, like at least the second round, I would suggest. Now, I have Layla Filia, who's Michigan, now transferred to Texas. I have her rated just behind Cheyenne Sellers. It is interesting. Filia is not real good shooting three-pointers above the break, but she is good in the corner, shooting 42%. That's really good. And then she's not real good in the mid-range game at 33%, but in the key or in the paint, she's above average at 43%. And overall, I think it'll come down to just what teams value, and they'll evaluate each player. But I would have Sellers a little bit higher above Filia. Now, as I mentioned, I would have AZ Fudd 5th, but she might shoot up. The last one I want to mention is Emily Ryan. She averaged 11.6 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 6.9 assists for Iowa State. She can shoot, so 48% from the floor, 43% from the three-point line, and a 55 effective field goal shooting percentage. And take a look at her shot chart. She just has the perfect analytical game, so she will get a look in somewhere. And if she has another good season, then yeah, she might move up to the list into the top 5. So there you have it. Those are my guard rankings going into the 2025 draft. Although it's way too early, but for shooting guards, I have Neepkins 1, Citron 2, Sellers 3, Filia 4, AZ Fudd 5, but she might shoot up like a rocket. And a shout out to Emily Ryan. she makes my list at 6. And then for point guards, I have Beckers 1, Tahina Paopao 2, Raven Johnson 3, Olivia Miles 4, Charlize Ledger-Walker 5, and then a 3-way tie with Roy Harmon, Georgia Amore, and Sarah Andrews. Now it's over to you. Give me your poison. What do you think I've gotten wrong? All your comments and feedback are welcome. Thanks a lot for watching.